All right. Well, it's 5 after, so I might as well get started. And because Pam and Andrew are here, and uh, I'm glad. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, today's going to be a little bit of an odd one, in that I want to just talk about mice, and I want to talk about what how I think about mice and the potential I kind of see for mice. But kind of before I kind of get going on the whole thing, I want to let you know that there was a couple mice that I couldn't get running today. So I'm going to have to do them again later. And that's okay, because I think they actually deserve like special attention. So the first one that I didn't get running today was this guy, which is the QuadStick. So this is made by Fred. And this is a great device. It does a mountain of stuff, but I just didn't have time today to configure this one. But yeah, that's okay. I think I'd like to do a show specifically on the QuadStick. So I'll put that up here for a minute. And then the next one that I wouldn't mind, that I wish I could have done today that I can't, is this. There's a product called Smile Mouse, which is a RGB camera tracking head mouse. And it's funny, Uday actually signed up for the talk today, so maybe he'll drop in. But Uday makes this product called Smile Mouse. And the reason why I can't run it is he just gave me a beta code for like the new one, the new Smile Mouse. And it doesn't work well on the machine that I have it on. There's some bugs that I've already kind of logged to Uday, so it's kind of unusable in this current state. But I'm sure he'll fix it, and because I really love Smile Mouse and I think it's really cool. But the reason why I'm starting here in this weird corner of the lab is I've started to keep my mice, like at least part of my mouse collection out, just to kind of show people this isn't a mouse. I just like to have this out. This is a game controller. But it's really interesting to think about the whole world of accessible mice. And the reason why I find it so interesting is that as a software person here at Microsoft, we like to think about how we would redesign human-computer interaction for people who can't use a mouse. But very rarely, and it's not that we haven't, but very rarely do people at Microsoft think about, well, why not try to make the object that appears to be a barrier more accessible? So what I mean by that is, like, it's actually quite unusual for us here at Microsoft to think, well, what if we just redesigned a more accessible mouse, right? Or different types of mice, unlike, say, some of the other companies. So, so for a good example, like here's a Logitech vertical mouse. This is a really nice little guy, and I'll show you one of these in a bit. I have a different one hooked up. This is a small one. And then you have like the Logitech trackball mouse. I'm not going to be showing this one much today, but it's a really lovely mouse, quite adjustable. You can adjust basically the plate on the bottom and stuff. It's really neat on what you can do with this guy. But you also got mice, this is a joystick mouse from a company called Ultrastick. This is an Ultrastick 360. This is a Razer Naga left-handed MMO mouse. So 12 buttons on the side. It's quite a nice little mouse. Lots of functionality here. There's a LexIP mouse. This mouse has a little thumbstick on the side of it. So it's really wild. It's kind of like the whole notion of this mouse is it's a gaming mouse that's meant to put all the functionality on one hand. So basically you can think of this little thumbstick thing on the side. You can set this to be like WASD in your PC games so that you use it as a mouse, but you also have the ability to like move your feet with like a thumbstick. But the other thing about it too is it actually has, it's a mouse, but it also has like, if I can show you that there. Yeah. So it also has this like rocking accelerometer like thing on there. So you can use it as a mouse, but you can also basically like tilt it side to side too. So it's really quite wild. I mean, I must admit this was a little bit too much for me to wrap my head around when I've tried to use it, but for some people it's probably really good. This is a Swift point mouse. I can't get this over here because the cord's kind of locked in there. What I like about this mouse is that the parts come out. So there's actually a really interesting opportunity to do some 3D printed augmentation off this mouse. They don't make this particular model anymore, but it has like 1 million buttons, and you can program all those buttons. And then there's the Pretorian Optima here, which is, a staple that we kind of have in here in the lab. But yeah, these are the ones that I just have out just to sort of show people like, oh yeah, there's more than just your regular mouse. Oh, I had a right there. There's a the Ocean Plastic mouse, which we made. I have that out as well. So I have this station set up in here. Let me get it set up better so that everyone can kind of see it. So I have this station here to really sort of talk about the possibilities of alternative mice. And I keep this desktop set like this to really sort of tell people, because I really do believe that if you can use a mouse, you can do anything in Windows, really. And it's, and I don't mean to say that like all you've got to do is figure out a mouse. Like I don't mean to imply that that all we've got to do is fix the mouse problem and we fix Windows. I don't mean that at all. But I do think that it is important to recognize that unlike a mobile device, which kind of requires like you to physically be able to touch it, there's also voice control on mobile devices and switch access and all that stuff. I'm not saying that. But people will come up to me and they'll ask me why we don't have switch access on Windows, which is a completely fair question to ask. And I can't say whether or not what we're doing there. But I do ask the question like, well, why do you feel like you need to apply something from a phone to Windows, right? And is it necessarily like the best way to go? I think especially like when you consider that, I really do believe you can do anything in Windows with a mouse. So, and there's lots of really interesting mouse utilities that happen in Windows, and I'm going to show just kind of a few of them today. But first I'll go through what I point out to people here on this one. So we do have a camera mouse, which is Smile Mouse currently on this machine, which I'd love to show you, but I can't because it's broken. Actually, I can show you really quickly like what happens. So I'm going to turn it on. So I'll turn on Smile Mouse. And it'll say calibrating, and you can see it's starting to calibrate.
I think it's your beard that throws it off.
I think you're right, Paul, but oh no, wait, is it working now? No, that's impossible. 3.6. Huh, it might be working. All right, cool. Let's play with some Smile Mouse. Oh.
Bryce, where's the camera?
Camera's up here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I am sitting kind of close with this big screen. I also don't know how to smile. My drama teacher told me the same thing. See if I can move this. Yeah, it's got a click and drag. I should practice. But yeah, when I first loaded this up, what it was doing was it was saying like, another mouse is detected. It was going to reset Smile Mouse. So it's cool that it's kind of going now. Shoot, now I feel bad. Now I feel like I should be demoing this and I haven't got it set up. Anyway, I will save that for another day because I do want to kind of dig into that one a bit more. But we have voice pointers, we have voice access on Windows, you have Dragon Naturally Speaking on Windows. This mouse here that you can kind of see in front here, this is a contour mouse. This is a mouse that's often prescribed to people who have repetitive stress injuries. So it's a bar that slides left to right and then rolls up and down. And you can basically have a left click, right click, double click. It's right there. It's a nice little device. I find it a little too sensitive, and I have it turned way down, but it's still very sensitive. But yeah, it's a lovely device. Over here, I have another Pretorian, basically like the Optima. This one has built-in tremor filtering. So this is my gross motor and tremors pointer that I'm sort of showing over here. You can see that it has this. I have this the QuadJoy up here, which is a mouth joystick, right? And I'm going to go through some of the QuadJoy settings so people can kind of see what you can do with it. The QuadJoy is a lovely device. It works really well. I have this. This is the Logitech vertical mouse that I have plugged in. I'm going to show some of the software on that in a minute. And then lastly, let's see if I can get this going. So this is an IMU, I think it's IMU-based head tracking mouse. This is the GlassOuse. I've been charging it for a while. Let's see if I can get it. It is funny that I have so many devices, like, plugged in. Oh, there we go. Oh, wait, it was on, then it was off. Okay. Oh, I did it again. Okay. What? It's freaking out. Bluetooth. Hey, Paul, tell me why Bluetooth's so great.
What's your byte switch? Do you have the byte switch for that?
I do have the byte switch for it. I don't have it out because I'm really nervous about people putting their mouth on things. Yeah. So like, I have like a little piece of tape on this like QuadJoy. So like, don't put your mouth on it. Wonder why it's doing that. Because it turns on and then it just immediately goes off and it says it's at 100%. Maybe if I remove it, because I actually really do want to show this device. So it is kind of fun. And GlassOuse. Okay. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So yeah, you can see. Can you folks see? All right. So yeah, fun. It's funny. It's actually amazingly precise. But it's one of those things that I often tell people. I think when I work with my engineers about different types of pointers, a lot of people are hyper focused on precision, right? And I understand why. I understand the notion of like precision being better. But every time I use one of these things, I'm like, okay, it's super precise, but it's so precise that like I have to hold my head perfectly still or it's going to like fly all over the place, right? And so I do think a lot about forgiveness, right? When it comes to this. So I'm actually going to turn on something since this is going to hopefully get some of that forgiveness back. So I have this other product on here called Steady Mouse. And Steady Mouse is for people with tremors, right? It's a good little device. I'm going to turn it on. So Steady Mouse enabled. Okay, cool. So see what's happening now? Now it's not flying all over the place, right? Now this mouse is like, it feels better, right? And it just kind of works better. And as long as I like leave that on, so Paul, I don't have the byte switch in because I'm using the switch that's actually plugged into the Pretorian to click. But yeah, now all of a sudden, like,
the first time I've seen any mouse used without a physical mouse. That's really interesting, Bryce.
Huh?
I think it's the first time I've seen Steady Mouse used without a physical mouse.
Yeah, well, because this is just a pointer, right? And it's funny because I actually most of the time forget I have Steady Mouse on this PC, and it's basically on all the time. So today I had to come in and like kind of remind myself that it was on. But it's a big screen and it's kind of hard to do some of this stuff. I think one of the things that's nice about this device over, say, some of the other camera mice or whatever, is this actually works with multiple monitors, like pretty decently. So if you are someone who has multiple monitors and you want to do that, this is actually a kind of an interesting device. I mean, I do wish, again, like in the same way that it's like a lot more usable when I put Steady Mouse on it, for me anyway, like I do wonder about like how we can bake some of these things into the stuff that we're building, so that we can think about it. But yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think clutching is a good concept with this, right?
Yeah,
Control when it's on and off.
that's true. You can't really clutch with this thing at all. You really like, so getting down to the corner, you really gotta, I don't think you can clutch. Yeah, that's interesting. You know what? I must admit, I haven't looked at the GlassOuse if there's any settings for this or like a companion app. I just haven't, I didn't look at that today. But yeah, I think that's really cool. You're right, Paul. Like I think the fact that I have Steady Mouse on there really does now, it makes this actually, in some ways, it makes it harder in some ways because I do have to be more overt. But I could probably tune that in the Steady Mouse settings. Like I can turn it up. Yeah, that's still better, right? I can turn the filtering down. So now it's starting to feel a little bit more like of what it was. Yeah, that's cool. You can ignore accidental clicks and stuff. It's fun. But yeah.
Okay, are the settings you're using now, or those are built in within Windows? Right?
This one isn't. This is Steady Mouse, and I'm sorry you can't see the screen very well. It's like kind of, it's kind of blasted out there. But this is a program called Steady Mouse. I think it's about, I don't know exactly how much it is. I can't remember. But it's been around a long time. I've been told that the algorithms that make Steady Mouse work are not really very difficult. So I think it is important to try to figure out how to make these things into more software. I certainly know that, again, I can't speak to what we're looking at or what we're not looking at, but I know that we've looked at this in the past. I mean, Paul and I have looked at this in the past. So, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to actually turn it off for a second because I'm going to take these off. And I'm going to go into the settings for QuadLIFE. And they are totally blown out, which is not fun. I wonder how I can get this better. Okay, Windows. What's funny here is we haven't done keyboards yet, but man, I've got this. Okay, that's a little bit better. Nope. Okay. So hopefully folks can see that a little bit. And I'm glad I've gone dark and that this is like started to adjust to this. And it's okay. I can go dark for a bit. But I think what I like about the QuadLIFE is that it actually isn't super complicated. But again, like this device and the Quad Stick are super powerful. So they have a ton of settings. And I don't want to pretend to be an expert on them, right? Like reset zones and range of motion and deadband and recenter timing and gesture timing and, other things like that. And adjusting like the timing of the high puff and the low puff, the sip low and the high sip. So what that means is for folks is that you can do like it's like a short click or a long click, but instead it's like a long puff and a short puff and things like that. And, the different timings that you can adjust in between each of those. And then, having different mouse profiles for this. Like maybe you might want to have one mouse for like profile for one piece of software and another for a different one. So you can change the pointer speed and the acceleration, things like that. But again, like these types of devices are really, they're really powerful because they need to be really powerful. But that does make them tricky. That does make them tricky to kind of use.
Hey, Bryce, is it usually an OT or somebody that sets those?
I don't know. I mean, I think we'd like to think that, but I think also the reality is like it's not like an OT is going to be there with you like day in and day out, you know. So, and it also depends, right? I mean, we certainly know a lot of OTs that do get into this, but I know way more OTs that are like very technically unsavvy, you know. So I think I certainly. Oh, that's cool, Bob. You said Uday was at next to your booth at ATIA. Yeah, that's cool. So I don't want to say anything good, bad about OTs. But I certainly don't want for people to assume that a medical professional is going to set you up, right? Because I think the vast majority of people that we talk to, that's just not the case. There's a lot of trial and error. You know, I mean, I think, Paul, you talk a lot with Andy, and Andy's not the typical OT. Sorry, Andy Lynn from Rancho. So, you know, I think you know, Andy is the outlier, not the regular. So yeah, that's what I want to think about that, and you know, just to kind of show some other. Oh wait, okay. So this Logitech, this guy here, this is another one of the vertical mice. It has like a bunch of buttons on the side. It has 2 buttons on the side, and I currently have these set to copy and paste. And I actually set the middle mouse click button to Copilot, which is really cool. So it's like up to date enough that like, you know, I can like the software has like configuration options for Copilot, which is pretty cool in my mind. Because this is like, you know, this is like a couple months old. So the fact that they've got it in there already is pretty awesome. And then again, there's this big button on here, and this is to give people the ability to change the pointer speed. You can remap any of these. So I have 2 pointer speeds on here. I have one that's ridiculously fast, and then I have one that's like slower. I tend to be a slow pointer speed guy myself. But what's great about the Logitech software, and you know, I think a lot of software like this is, you can have what's the global settings for the mouse, but then you can have app specific settings, right? And you know, it is complicated to organize and arrange all that, but once you do, it can be pretty powerful, right? Like the mouse just does things that you need it to. Now there's this one whole part of this. Let me just go in and see if I can. They have this thing called, which I can't quite figure out, called Smart Actions, which feels like macros. But they're macros like at a real system level. There's like macros like take this text that you have on the clipboard and send it to ChatGPT. So it's kind of wild. I haven't quite figured it out yet. Or is it under Flow? No, that's not it. I'm not sure where it is. But yeah, I mean, Logitech always does a really great job with their software. It's actually it's one of my favorite things about them that they do that they spend so much time with their software and kind of filling that out. So I'm going to go to a different part of the room to show you some other fun things. But before I leave, is there any questions about anything I kind of showed here? It's all pretty straightforward, and you know, you all can get a hold of me whenever you want. Oh, Andrew, I didn't know you were an SLP. That's cool. So yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you know, hey Andrew, can I tell you an SLP story?
Of course.
So I was at one of these conferences that I was talking about, like how I like to go to non-tech disability conferences. So I was at a conference last year that was for Department of Vocational Rehabilitation people. So I was at a conference for social workers. I mean, it was fun. It was great. I can't wait to go back. But I was in a session in the conference where it was about AACs. Like, you know, it was a woman with nonverbal cerebral palsy. She was giving a presentation on how she uses her AAC. And one of the questions from the audience was, our team of SLPs doesn't know anything about AACs. And I literally groaned out loud. And then I got chastised a little bit for tech shaming, which is fair because it's, you know, I shouldn't. But in the moment, it was as someone who does work in tech, it was very shocking. Like it was like hearing my mechanic doesn't know what wrenches are, you know, and I was educated basically about the fact that lots of SLPs just do like breathing and swallowing and, you know, and stuff like that. And so I straightened out my attitude about that a bit. But it is funny, like, because Paul, who's asking if an OT will set that up, like I said, he works with like Andy Lynn, who's like, you know, someone who does all this, and he's not your regular OT, you know.
He's a guru.
Right. So it's interesting, right? Like, because we've fallen into that trap a lot here over the years, where we tend to work with people that complement us and that we understand. You know, it's just natural, right? Like we're tech people. We like people who understand tech, right? It's nothing nefarious, right? It just happens to be how it works. But it is something that I think about like every day, which is that, you know, the vast majority of people out there in the disability community just are not anywhere near as technically savvy as I think we even think they are, right? And it's, you know, like it can be a little humbling, you know, and, you know, a lot of the time you have to really pay attention to it.
I always try to think of it as just demystifying.
Right.
Some folks think of it as a big, huge thing when really, you know, it's just little steps to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I appreciated the SLP story. Next year, the Speech Language Art National Convention is actually in Seattle.
Yeah, so it's in the fall, right? I actually wrote them about that because I wanted to. I want to do tours of the lab. Like I was like, okay, first and foremost, like you guys should come here. So I wrote them about it. Yeah, what's that called again? It's fine. I wrote them. I think I might need to check back in with them. I'll probably do it in this summer. I think I was a little early. Okay. So the next thing I want to show, I want to talk about our favorite mouse, or at least my favorite mouse. So I want to talk about this guy. This is the Microsoft Adaptive Mouse. It's about 18 months old. We just re-released it in a way. And when I say re-released it, I'll be completely honest with you about what we have done. When we put this mouse out, you could only buy it on Microsoft.com. So you could only buy it with a credit card. And, you know, we didn't have commercial sales for it because we were only selling it through Microsoft.com. So we got a lot of our commercial customers and our therapeutic customers and just a lot of people who are like, you know, I can't buy anything with a credit card. I need to be able to make a purchase order. I need to be able to do a bunch of things. And we priced it to be as inexpensive as possible. But that also meant that's why you could only buy it on Microsoft.com, because we basically left no margins for anyone to resell this thing. So there's a bunch of restructuring that's happened across our teams here at Microsoft. So we re-released this product, and the price of it went up. But I don't feel super horrible about how much the price went up, because I'm actually really bullish on the fact that now, you know, an enterprise can buy 20 of these with a purchase order, right? Or like a therapeutic community can buy them. So I'm really hopeful that will help actually get these out into the world. So the one thing, you know, a lot of our products were inspired by the adaptive controller. A lot of us came from the adaptive controller. I will tell you, as someone who came from the adaptive controller, I know that we started with limb different and quadriplegics. I know we moved on to cerebral palsy. I know that we then went on to neuromuscular conditions like muscular dystrophy and spinal muscular atrophy, things like that. And the adaptive controller does okay for those ones on the end. It was really centered and designed around those first conditions of tetraplegia, limb difference, cerebral palsy. That was where we really started. But so when we started this mouse, it was really important to address those communities of neuromuscular conditions. And as I just sort of said a few minutes ago, if you can use a mouse, you can do anything on Windows. So, you know, we would observe people with muscular dystrophy who use on-screen keyboards and they use high-end gaming mice so that they can basically put as much functionality onto one hand as possible. They can move that hand like a few millimeters in every direction, have a fully functioning mouse. So they'll set the sensitivity high. So I don't want to say that this is as good as a high-end gaming mouse. Like, so just to kind of compare stats. So this is 45 grams. A Logitech Lightspeed is actually 85 grams. So it's actually lighter, way lighter. 45 grams is pretty light. This only goes to 6,000 DPI though. Like a Logitech Lightspeed goes to around, I think, 16,000 DPI. So not as sensitive, but for those who don't know what DPI is, 6,000 DPI is about 6 times as sensitive as a regular mouse. That's about right, isn't it, Paul? I always say that, but...
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. So I really love this mouse. And there's actually one feature of this mouse that we don't get to talk about enough because it's a little bit confusing and it's really hard to describe. So if you were to look at this mouse, you would kind of go up, you know, down, right, left. I don't know. I can't, I'm upside down, so it's really weird for me. But you get it, right? Like this is how the mouse goes. But we have this feature that lets you rotate the axis of the mouse for people who might have like an atypical grip on it. So you can set the mouse to like, so if I held it like this, it could be like up, down, or I can even go up, down. Like I can do it any direction, right? Like I can just set basically instead of like where you would expect the top of the mouse to be here, I could set the top of the mouse to here if I wanted to, just to change the way my grip works. Because for a lot of people who have like an atypical grip, they have to like basically in their brain, like rewire their brain to go, oh, up is this way, right? And so we wanted to kind of fix that. And I don't know how many people use it, but I'm really thankful that we got it in there because I think it's a really great feature. I've never seen it on any other mouse, you know, so I think it's something that's really important. But the story we always like to tell is that, you know, in real life, mice have tails and so do ours. So I'm actually just going to press this button here and I'm going to pop off the back, right? And I'm going to put on our commercially available tail. And now this looks like a lot more like a mouse that you'd probably recognize, right? You know, pretty typical mouse. Little right-handed thumb support. But, you know, I can flip it over and now it's left-handed. I could reconfigure these buttons so that I could switch them left to right. You know, all kinds of stuff. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, you can make them both left. You can pretty much do anything with it. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But what the designer of the mouse is a gentleman whose daughter has cerebral palsy. And this is really close to his first sort of envisioning of this for his daughter. So she, you know, has cerebral palsy, so she has involuntary movement, and she has trouble with fine motor control, right? A lot of high tone. So there's these grooves in the mouse that are there to keep the mouse, to keep her fingers in place, right? So they don't go side to side. The extra plastic is there to sort of show her, or to give her like resistance, right? So she doesn't accidentally click the mouse buttons because, you know, of her high tone. We block the wheel so she doesn't accidentally hit it. The thumb support, and this is, you know, again, it's a little kid's mouse. The thumb support is flexible material, and all this is 3D printed. And on the bottom, there's these little dimples, and these dimples grip the table, and they make the mouse harder to move. So for her with her high tone, this actually gives her more resistance. And we can also turn the sensitivity down. So if we turn it up for someone with muscular dystrophy, we can turn it down for her. And that resistance gives her precision, right? And that's how we, and that's a really sort of fun way to think about the physical aspects of this mice and that. But even beyond that, I think there's some really fun stuff to kind of play with. So This was a tail that we made for the mouse that didn't quite work out, but I still have it. It's still fun. But what I want to show you about this version of the mouse, and it's hard to see, but I taped over the laser. And I'm doing this intentionally and it's funny because people come up and they try to use this as a mouse and it totally doesn't work. And I purposely keep it upside down. So I don't, Andrew, I don't know how much you use Dyson in your like practice, probably not as much as like an OT, but like, I have Dyson under it and I keep it like on the desk like this. And, I keep it so that it's meant to be this. So what I'm going to do, and I'll see if I can zoom into that screen. Actually, maybe I can bring the screen a little closer. So I'm going to show you how I have this set. So you can see that mouse cursor is moving around on the screen, and it's going in like a square pattern. So we have these options that let me basically set. And it was, this was something I really asked for because I really like it. And you can do this with both the mouse and with the hub. So I'm pressing one button on the mouse, and every time I press it, it goes in one direction. And then when I let up and I press it again, it goes in another direction. And it goes that long, until you keep pressing it. So again, I'm pressing one button and I'm moving the cursor. I can move the cursor anywhere on the screen using these circular patterns, right?
Bryce, I think that's Snake from Nokia days.
Is it? Oh.
Well, that's how Snake was, right? Remember that?
That's true. You're right, Paul. That's funny. So the other button, if I short press, it's going to click. It's going to left click. But if I long press, it should right click. Oh, wait, it didn't. Or maybe I don't actually have that set. I'm not sure. Sometimes that's how I typically set it, is that, if I long press. And so what I like about this is that, just, having like in a browser here, I still have the wheel, like, so I can kind of scroll up and down. I actually flip the wheel so that it makes sense because I'm using this mouse upside down. So I really like this because what I really like about this and what I really appreciate about this is that you can set these two mouse buttons to anything that you can set the adaptive hub to. And so in a way, we've come out with a 2-button switch device that you can Bluetooth to your machine for around, I think it's $65 now is the price, all right? So if you can use these 2 buttons, like if they're big enough, or, if you have the ability to use these 2 buttons, I don't want to pretend like they're universal. They are just 2 mouse buttons. But I think that's really interesting, and I think it drives me, it's wild to me that, like, if you look at like iOS or if you look at Android, they really want you to use these bespoke switch HID interfaces. And I understand why, but like, I just feel there's so much opportunity. Like, there's so many Bluetooth mice like all over the place. It'd be great if like folks thought about how we could reuse just Bluetooth mice as 2-button switches. So to show you like a different thing here, I'm actually going to go into this program. This is a school program called Clicker. It's basically a communication / word processor / I don't know. It's really hard to describe Clicker for folks, but it's a really cool tool. And what I've got here is it's set on their switch activated keyboard. And so I've programmed this mouse to say, okay, you're going to do that mouse pattern when you're most of the time, but when you're in Clicker, you're going to set yourself to F7 and F8, and I can't remember which one it is, honestly, because those are the buttons that Clicker uses for switch access. So I've now changed this mouse into like a switch interface specifically for Clicker, and I can go in and go around and do stuff like that. So I really love the potential of this mouse, and we really don't talk about it enough, and I get how difficult it is. I mean, trust me, no one more than me, knows how difficult it is to say, oh, this isn't a mouse, this is a switch. And everyone's going to go, dude, that's a mouse. Like, I can see it. It's a mouse, right? And that form, it's hard to get around how people think about that. Does that make sense? because I really do get how hard it is to kind of wrap your head around it. And that's only on this one. Like, I can program these mice buttons. So what I've said using our Microsoft Accessory Center, and let me pull that up, and hopefully we can see it. Come on. So it's saying, so right now on this profile, it's basically saying, it's saying move cursor. I know you can't see it, but it's saying for the default, it's that mouse movement thing we do. But then I've got clicker as an app. I've added the app clicker, and I said clicker, it's F7 and F8, right? So yeah, and I reversed the scrolling on both of them. So there really is a lot of things that you can do with this. It's super powerful. I really love it. But yeah, I always am looking for ways of telling that story of like, that the mouse could be something else, right? Like, let's say you just needed 4 switches, it would actually be less, and you could use the mouse as a switch. It would actually be less expensive to buy 2 mice.
So, yeah, Bryce, you're making me think we should put some 3.5 millimeter.
No, that's what Helms wanted to do. He wanted to put 3.5 millimeters on the mouse, and I don't know if we need it. I like the hub. I like how what we came up with. Yeah, Andrew.
I used Logitech MX Master.
Oh yeah.
The 3S. And so when you get into the Logitech Hub, which you mentioned earlier, I custom map all the buttons within specific programs, and that includes shortcut.
Yeah, totally.
Shortcut keys. And I'm wondering if there's a way to use that as a switch.
Yeah, you totally could. Everything that I just did here for clicker, you could totally do with a Logitech MX. Because you're right, you can. I think the fun thing, or the thing about the Logitech that, if I'm remembering correctly, it doesn't want you to change left and right click, and that's what I'm doing here. Like I'm changing left and right click. So all the other buttons on the Logitech you can change to whatever you want, but like it kind of like, and understandably, don't get me wrong, I understand why people are like, well, why would someone do that, right? But I could. It's interesting. And it's funny that we bring that up because it kind of leads us to like, it kind of leads us to this guy. Right. So this is a Kensington Expert mouse. Wonderful device. Whenever Kensington comes in here, I just keep telling them how much I love this device. And they don't really change it a lot, so they kind of get sick of me saying it because they really want to talk about new things, and I'm like, no, this thing that you've had for a decade, I love it. And because it really is like the biggest trackball that you can get for a reasonable price, and it's so precise and it's so configurable. And, I just think it's such a really cool device. Okay, I'm going to not save that. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to pull up the Kensington software. And I'll zoom into it in a minute, but so this has, let me take this off. So this has the 4 buttons and then the big scroll wheel on the outside. And you can program all those 4 buttons to an amazing amount of things. But the one thing that you can also do with this guy is you can program, if you press 2 of them, you can program the 2 to be a different, a 6th action. So you got 4 buttons, but you actually have 6 configurable options if you have the ability to press 2 buttons at the same time. This is another one that I have configured to frustrate the majority of people who come in here because I basically set it up as a right-handed mouse or a left-handed trackball. So all the righties come in here and they don't know that I have left click set to here. Everyone's expecting left click to be up here because it's like a mouse, and it's not. I actually have both of these set to left click, and I have this one set to right click. But what I want to show you though is just how powerful the software is on this too, because it's just like the Logitech and just like what we try to do too. There's video conferencing. I like the snippet thing. You can put a password in here which I know is like a security guy's nightmare, but for someone who can't type, like being able to like enter a password in there is pretty darn wild, you know, like it's just a text snippet. Now, and you have like 10 text snippets available or a snippets menu that'll pop up. The one thing I will say is that you need to have this Kensington Works software installed on the PC for any of this functionality to work. But, you know, it's got like navigation and custom speed and media controls and web browser controls, like just all kinds of stuff. You know, virtual desktop switching, system commands. It's probably, you know, they probably haven't updated this in a while. But yeah, it's really just a wonderful system. You can do, obviously, keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that too. I don't think there's macros in here. I think that's the one thing it doesn't really have. Because I know you can do keyboard shortcuts, but I don't think you can do macros, which is a shame, but still, pretty darn cool. Pretty cool. Where is keyboard shortcuts, actually, now that I said it? Window snapping, virtual system. Huh, maybe you can't do keyboard shortcuts. That's weird. No. That can't, oh yeah, keyboard shortcuts, first thing. That's why I missed it. It's like the first thing on the list. You can do keyboard shortcuts. So, like, you know, I think time-wise, it's worked out pretty good for this version of today. We've gone through a lot of mice. But I do think, like, that's what we kind of look for in mice, is that ability to customize. I will tell you, you know, when I talk to teams now and they talk about customization, for me, our adaptive mouse is the bar. You know, I want all that customization and everything. And it's a hard sell, you know, especially on things that people don't believe that it's needed. But I do think that those customization experiences are really important. I'd love to take questions if anyone has any questions. The open source adapter. Oh, yeah. HID remapper.
Yeah, I can't talk highly enough of them. It's
yeah,
amazing,
you really liked it. Yeah, it's cool.
It's actually, well, I thought of it when you showed the trackball too, because that community is really big into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big Japanese community that's using it for remapping trackballs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, Bryce, one thing I'm interested in is, you know, this, we talked a little bit about this, but like, I don't know, like, you won't be able to say much. I know I'm not internal anymore, but like using AI to maybe help with configuration of complex devices, right? So
yeah,
that could be really powerful.
Yeah.
You showed the way things. I don't know. Hopefully that's in the future, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've always talked about it. And if you go to Cephalable, which is another, actually, you know what I should do? I should do Smile Mouse and Cephalable in the same day. Cephalable is another sort of camera voice interaction system that's out there. And I would encourage you all to check it out. Now, funny. I'm here on a Sunday night. Hi, you can come in. We have people that come in, and usually I don't expect people, but it's all right. You know, Cephalable uses AI. They basically take the natural language instruction, they put it up into the cloud, and then they send it back to use it for configuration. So yeah, Paul, I agree. It's super powerful. I think you're right. I think that is something that we should look into. I think honestly, it's probably one of those things that, I got to figure out how we can just make that a no-brainer. Because like we do it for Windows settings today, but I don't know if we do it for peripheral settings. So